This is Renard Brown, Executive Director of the Baltimore Economic Leadership League. We are here for our first Wednesday's Money Meetup. Thank you so much for joining. We have some very good and exciting content tonight. Thanks so much, everybody, for being prompt and right on the ball. We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to have just a quick few words from our founder of the Baltimore Economic Leadership League, Mr. William Holmes, and then we'll get into our events from there. Mr. Holmes, you have the floor, sir.
I like how you emphasize quick. You know I love to talk. Hey, I want to thank you all for being members, for being here tonight, for supporting this initiative, this movement. We have $25,000 in the bank, and today's the first day we start lending. So that's because of you guys, all right? So let me tell you, I can't thank you enough for all your support. This is just day one. So as we get more money in, we'll put more money out the door, help more small, more rural, minority, women-owned businesses across Maryland. So if I can ever be of service to you, let me know. And once again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for being members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holmes. I would be remiss, of course, if I did not refer you all and have you all refer to your friends, network, enemies, as Malcolm X used to say, to joinbell.org to sign up. It's really easy to remember because it's right behind me, joinbell.org. Just refer them there. We do, as you all know, have membership, sponsorship, and donor options available to help us to realize our mission. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Janetta Thurston, who's going to go through her presentation about something I think that's very topical and that you all will get a lot of good content and information from on our meeting today. Dr. Thurston, you have the floor, man.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown, and thank you, Mr. Holmes. I am excited about being here on this evening, and I'm going to do you like the preacher does. I'm not going to hold you long. We're just going to hold you right and give you some information. I can talk about human resources all night long, but they told me no, you only have a limited amount of time. So what I have tried to do in the presentation tonight is that we're going to hit some of the high points so that we can get through all of the presentation. And I think we're going to have some question and answer period, I think, afterwards. And we're not going to be here long at all tonight. I am so glad that Dr. Farrow is here, because those things that I stumble on or need some help with, she is here. And then, of course, we have Mr. Holmes and Mr. Brown, and we also have the co-founder of JDA Management, which is Amaris Thurston. Let's see if I can get my presentation up and going. And then can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can.
Are we good?
We're good to go.
Okay. For those of you that don't know me, again, I am Dr. Janetta Thurston. I have 25 plus years in the area of human resources. I've done everything from being an admin in human resources up to being a director of HR, as well as over projects, that is a personnel support contract where we had almost 1,000 employees. So I've managed one person, I've managed 1,000. So we have had the experience of the whole gamut of people. Tonight, we're going to be talking about human resources. It's about the people. And what we want to do at the very beginning of this training is put out the disclaimer. We are not attorneys. This is for informational purposes only, and we want to make sure that you and your businesses are very compliant. So make sure you check with an attorney, get that advice and get that consultation so that you know that all your bases are covered. And the thing about being in human resources is that you have to like people. And I know some people that's in human resources and you kind of say, why they in human resources? They don't seem to like people too much. And I know it's a necessary evil for all of us. These are going to be some of our learning objectives tonight. And some of you may have, you may be in startups. Others of you may have been seasoned business owners and you're way down the road. Either way, I think that the information that we're going to cover tonight is going to help you out. But for those of you that are part of startups, human resources can be very daunting. You have to do everything from the operational side, and you have to go to the strategic side. So we're going to cover a little bit of all of that. Our objectives tonight, we're going to define what human resources really is all about. We're going to think about why is it important? Why do we even need to do it? Look at some of their activities, talk about some of the HR laws. And many of you have asked me questions about the difference between exempt and non-exempt, employee versus those 1099 folk, right? And we're going to learn the steps for recruitment. We're going to talk about retention and managing performance. I also had a little bit that I wanted to share about metrics, but that'll be the next time, if Mr. Holmes decided he's going to let me come back again. We'll talk about some of the metrics that you can use when you're doing HR, okay? And I know that's a lot. That's why we're going to be moving kind of quickly. And then I think there's going to be question and answer period. So write your questions down if you don't want to interrupt me. And then that way we'll be able to get through the presentation and address your questions, okay? All right. Look at this. You all remember Lucy with Charlie Brown. Now, we all know she didn't have any type of credentials that said that she could be a psychiatrist, right? But she was out there and she was charging folk. You see, she was charging 5 cents a hit for every bit of advice she was giving. But I really like this quote. It says, the biggest problem that I see is the low barriers of interest into the HR profession. By low barriers, I mean this. CEOs too often assign the important tasks of HR management to someone who has little to no background in the field. And they do it based on this assumption: anyone can do HR. Now, some of you all that have been in business for a minute know that that is absolutely not true. This was a quote that was made at an HR conference a few years ago by Michael, who was the CEO and the president of SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management. And often people do think that it doesn't take a whole lot to be in HR. It doesn't, all you have to do is be able to Google. You don't really know, you don't really need to know all the ins and outs. Oh, you know, my grandmother can do it. My aunt can do it. My best friend can do it. There are many instances that I can tell you that I have stepped into organizations and they have been on the verge of bankrupt because their HR person did something wrong. Whether it is that they didn't do the deductions correctly, or they're not following specific laws. I've seen the whole gamut of all of it when we're talking about HR. So, you know, we don't get a whole lot of respect sometimes in this area, but everybody needs to think about doing HR and doing it correctly. Okay, let's talk about what does HR actually mean? Well, human resources is not necessarily a person. It's actually a function. It's actually a function within the business that is responsible for all things worker related. And we have to really, as HR professionals and as business owners, be able to toe the line and have that balance between employees and the business. You have to make decisions that will benefit both sides of the coin, right? So we talked about what it is, but oftentimes you hear human resource management, HRM. That is when you take all of the skills and the abilities, knowledge, all those techniques, all of those things come together so that you are serving both the employee as well as the company, especially if you are in a field where you have unions. Because the union, they're going to pin you to the wall oftentimes because they are for the employee. But even as an HR professional, you have to look at the union side, but you also have to consider the employee as well as the organization. So there is a delicate balance between human resources and the organization, and you really need to know your stuff when you're going in there to do it. Am I doing okay so far? You all following me? Great. Now, these are the 7 basic things that HR policies usually affect. Recruitment and selection. There are actually laws attached to how you do it. There are many people, and I know some of you small people out, the small businesses out there, when you select your people, are you actually holding on to and filing away people, resumes, their questionnaires, all of that into a file? Don't raise your hand. We don't want to be in bed with you when they come to get you. No, because if you're not, start that habit. You have to have a certain number of people to abide by that law, but you want to be able to stand up in court and have the documentation that, yes, Mr. Brown, Mr. Holmes, we're the best candidate. Here's the resume. Here are the rest of the resumes. See how they stacked up. We ask the same questions to every candidate. Those type of things. Those are things that we don't often think about, but we need to track that to make sure we're able to defend ourselves if we ever are in a litigation. Performance management, learning and development, succession planning, compensation and benefits, HR data and analytics, and the HRI system, which is actually the technology piece of human resources. So why is human resources even important? Why is it important? Anybody know? I'll take an answer to that. Anybody know why it's important? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and come off mute, Ms. Rick.
Important because companies and worlds need people, and human resource manage people. And if you didn't have human resources, you'd have a chaotic situation
All
to
right.
manage all those peoples and personalities.
Okay, thank you for that. And you are absolutely right. Employees are a critical component of any organization. Most of you, when you look at your budget and you see where you're spending your money, most of your money is going to where? Where is it going, Mr. Holmes? Where is it going?
The people.
Going to pay people. So it's a big investment. It's a real big investment. It's probably one of the biggest in your company. So you want to make sure that you have the right people. As Jim Collins says, you want to have the right people on the bus in the right seats, doing the right things. So the first one is employees are a critical component of your organization. The second one, they are one of your biggest assets. And then proper HRM help companies achieve their mission and vision success. It helps you get to where you're going. It helps you go from point A to point B, human resources. It helps the organization stay compliant. It also helps your people grow. It helps them develop and grow. And finally, organizations, they meet the needs of their clients and their customers because of their employees, because of those folk that are helping them hit the target and hit the mark. Oftentimes, you might even have people on your team that are dealing with your folk in the organization don't necessarily see you. So they really play a critical role, human resources, because they help develop all of these things in your company. They help develop all of these in your company. And these are just a list of some of the things that human resources do. It's just a list of some of the things. Now, had many of you even thought about this? Had you even thought about it? Look at it. Staffing, job description, pay, benefits, handbook, safety, the posters, the hiring, that's a lot of stuff. And I just thought I would put down a couple of things down here so you could see just how much they do and how important they are to your organization. So I think you're going to send these out, right, Mr. Brown and Mr. Holmes? So you all will be able to keep these later and be able to have access to them so you can come back and look at this. But that's why I put it there, just so you can get an idea of what people do that are in HR. They don't sit all day long. Well, some of them might, but they do have a lot of responsibility. But they don't sit and eat bonbons and watch TV while the door is closed in their office. They really have some things that they need to get done. Now, I know this is a lot on the screen, but what I wanted to show you here is HR law by the numbers. Now, there are a lot of things that you have to comply with based on the number of employees that you have. You have laws that apply to everybody, big and small, okay? And everybody has to comply with those. But then you have the next level. Once you go from 1 to 14, you got these laws. But when you hit that 15th employee, there are laws that are just for your area. Then it changes again at 20, again at 50, and at 100. And not only do you need to know what laws apply to your organization, you also need to know the number of employees that you need to have before you can go to the next level and what you're responsible for. And then you got to remember, you have to check the state level, the federal level, and in some cases, the local level. So just because you're paying that $7.25 for the federal minimum wage, if you live in the state of Maryland, you have to pay anywhere between $12.20 and $12.50. That's your minimum wage rate. And we're going to see that in a minute. But guess what? If you live in Montgomery County in the state of Maryland, your minimum wage can go up to $15 an hour. So do you see that wide range? You can go from $7.25, which is the federal level, and you would be compliant. But if you're in Montgomery County and you have 51 employees, or whatever the number is, we'll see in a minute, whatever that number is, you might need to be paying $15 an hour. Did you know that? Maybe, maybe not. So you have to really be aware of when that law changes and when, you know, what you need to do. The labor laws are enforced by the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They make sure that you are abiding by the law, along with the Department of Labor that enforces the wage and hour division of the Department of Labor, also does some enforcement. Anybody have questions real quick? Or are you just gonna let me keep rolling? Okay, great. Now, here's something else that's by the numbers. In Maryland, if you have not done this, make sure you do it. In Maryland, Maryland requires that the employer provide all of this information on every employee. And you have to provide it within 20 days of their hire date. Okay? Within 20 days of their hire date. And that's, and I got a list here, their name, address, socials, first day of work. Do you have medical benefits? How often are you going to pay your folk? What will their rate of pay be? And the employer's name and address, their EIN number and the SUI number. Now, some of you may not even know that that's happening because you know why? You may have a payroll system that is taking care of that for you. They should tell you if they are, because that's part of their responsibility, right? But I talked with someone even today. They do all of their own, they really got a strong heart, but they do all of their own payroll. not only do they have to deal with taxes, they have to deal with things like this. Okay. And I just wanted to show you some of the laws that will affect your business. This is another law. Now, this became effective, I think, in 2018. But Maryland requires employers to provide sick leave to their employees. Sick leave can be unpaid if you have 14 or fewer employees. This is part of the Sick and Healthy Act that they passed back in 2017-18 timeframe. Otherwise, sick leave must be paid if you have over 14 employees, if you have 15 or more. If you're not doing this, and the first thing you think, oh, I can't really afford it. Well, if you have under 14, you don't have to pay them, but you do have to provide the time. In other words, if they call in, you can go, and I put the website down there, you can go and look, and they give you a list of things that they can use their sick leave for. And that information is out there. You can go to their site, DLLR, and you can see all the information out there. It gives you a snippet of everything that's going on. And I'm telling you, I'm just not making this up. This is actually really happening. Okay. Now, this is what I was saying about the difference. I wanted to give you a sample of some of the things that happen when we're talking about HR by the numbers. Now, this is the minimum wage laws. Look at Maryland. If you have 14 or fewer employees, you see the dates 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. They tell you how you can actually go out and find the information. They tell you how the rate is going to change in all these years. But I also put up Montgomery County and Howard County so you can see how it compares. In Montgomery County, 11 to 50 employees, you see how the rate changed? So next year, you're going to be paying $15. And if you have over 51 employees in Montgomery County, you're going to be paying $15. Okay? So know that laws change. Right when you think you got it, you will look and it has changed. All right? Okay, I got a few more minutes and I'm going to try to get all this in. I'm sorry if I'm talking so fast. How about non-exempt and versus exempt? Most of you, well, many of you may have employees that are non-exempt, which means that they're being paid by the hour and they get time and a half if they are non-exempt employees for overtime. Again, it's very important that you know the laws, because if we were in the state of California, you know how you have to work 40 hours in a week and then we start calculating overtime? State of California calculates it daily. So if you work 8 hours, you're good. But if you go and work 9, 10 in the same day, you get overtime. So they have overtime daily laws. And keep your eyes open. We don't know what's going to happen in our state, if that even comes up. But I'm showing you this or telling you this so that you will know that sometimes it feels like it's a moving target. Okay? If you have any questions about non-exempt, write them down. I'll try to get to them. Exempt, these are people that are not eligible for overtime. Okay? There is a particular salary that they have to make in order to be, in order for them to be exempt. I'm sorry, they have to be non-exempt, but there is a particular salary. Let me see if I wrote that down somewhere because I can't remember all this stuff. Yes, we're going to talk about that next slide. And I put it up here on the slide for you. There are 3 main requirements that you must consider when you're talking about exempt. You have the salary payment. They get a salary rather than an hourly rate, regardless of how many hours. Now, you don't want to work them to death, but regardless of how many hours they work, they still get the same rate of pay. If they have a week that they work 60 hours, and you're going to pay them X amount of dollars, they get that. If they have the next week, They only work 2 hours, but you promise them because they're salaried that they're going to get X amount of money, they're still going to get it. Okay. Regardless of the number of hours they complete per week. You also have to look at total earnings. And the rate for 2022 is that they have to get at least $684 per week or $35,568 a year. Now, that doesn't sound like an awful lot, but for a small business, if you're having to consistently pay that, whether you're getting the work out of them or not, you need to really think about what is going to be best for your budget, okay? The next, their job duties. Beyond meeting the salary and earning requirements, folk that are exempt, they have to have a professional role that require a higher level of expertise or knowledge. This applies to employees who have an office or a non-manual job responsibility, and they would earn that amount of money, $684 per week or $35,368 per year. Okay, I got a few more minutes. I'm going to hit it and run. These are just a list of some of the types of exemptions. You have executive exemptions, and they tell you they must meet these 3 bullet points. You have administrative exemptions. They must meet these bullet points. Same thing with there's professional, computer, highly compensated, and outside sales. We're not going to do a deep dive. You can go back when you have time and look at these particular slides. Now, this is what I really wanted to get to, the employee versus independent contractor. Determining whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor can be a little bit mind-boggling, only because the IRS seems to be unclear as well. But they are really concerned with who controls the work, who controls the work. And this is a general rule, and I got this directly from the IRS. The general rule is that an individual is an independent contractor if the payer or the organization has the right to control or direct only the results of work. You don't tell them how to do it. You don't tell them when it's going to be done. So you don't tell them what or how, but only the results is what you can control. Then that person probably is an independent contractor. You are not an independent contractor if you perform services that can be controlled by the employer, like what or where it's done. This applies even if you're giving freedom of action. So, oh, you have the freedom to do it the way you want. But if they come in and say, oh, no, don't do it that way. We need you to go this step. We need you to do it a particular way. What matters is that the employer has the legal right to control how those things are done, how your services are performed. And there are 3 basic things that the IRS consider. Behavior control. Does the worker control how they will do the work? The IRS looks at stuff like the worker's hours, or do they have to be in your office? Are you going to give them your computer? Are you going, all these type of things they will ask you. There is a questionnaire that the state can send you if they really are kind of puzzled as to whether someone should be an independent contractor. What type of relationship do you have with them? We know that we are at an at-will state, but also as a consultant or a 1099, usually you have a contractor that specifies how long you're going to work. And financial control, that means you can, as an independent contractor, you can lose business. You can have a profit or you can have a loss, and it affects you personally, okay? Now, if the business owner has the right to control or direct not only what is to be done, but also how it is to be done, then the worker is most likely an employee. If the business owner can direct or control only the results of the work done and not the means and methods of accomplishing the result, then the worker is probably an independent contractor. Okay, almost there. Recruitment, let's talk about that real quick. You really want to get the right people when you're starting out your recruitment, because it's going to take you, if you have to replace somebody, it takes 6 to 9 months salary cost to replace someone. So it's best to hold the line, toe the line, get everything right when you are starting out. Only hire when there's a good business reason to do so, okay? And we know that the recruitment process just simply means that you identify, attract, and select new team members for your team. And these are some of the things that you must do when you're doing recruitment. You see what the second one says, prepare the job description. Most of you jump, or I think a lot of you jump right in and say, oh, I'm gonna hire so-and-so, and you don't think about what they're going to be doing. You really want to do that because down the line, it affects your performance evaluations. But these are some of the things, most of you know how to do this, okay? And this is some of the vehicles. So a lot of you don't know where to go, what to do. This is just a list of places that you can use. The job boards, social media, job fairs, employee referrals. How about some of the colleges and universities? It just gives you a gamut of some of those things that you can use. Now, retention. How do you retain people? Make good hires in the beginning. That's number one. Try to as much as possible. Now, sometimes we all miss the target, but try as much as possible to hire the right person. And it says, this is a statistic that's in the HR world. It says 80% of employee turnover is caused by bad hiring decisions from the very beginning. Conduct stay surveys. What is the stay survey? That's when somebody's sticking with your company through the thick and thin. Survey them and find out why they staying. It might be the culture. It might be the pay. It might be that you have a family atmosphere. Find out why they are staying with you. Treat people like the precious people that we say that they are. Reward those folk. Train your managers to be great managers. Sometimes that's where your breakdown is. Provide the tools that workers need. Give timely and constructive feedback. Live up to your commitment and communicate openly and freely. Managing performance. Basically, I always tell people start off by knowing what you want. That way it's easy to communicate with folk as to what you need from them. Okay. Again, these are going to be available to you and you'll be able to go back into depth. And that's it. I did it in my time frame, didn't I? Yeah, thank you for clapping for me, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And what we can do here is take any of the questions that you might have.
I have a question.
Who is that? Cheryl.
Okay.
Come up. Okay, you get one question, Cheryl. Give it to me.
When you're doing an independent contractor who's going to be a 1099 employee, where do you find a contract that you can create the agreement?
Well, there are many resources that you can go to, but what I suggest you do is if you find one, because a lot of people just Google, there is a legal Zoom and they have all the things. I say make sure if you can make this happen, an attorney can help you with that. Because that way, if you know someone that has a legal background in contracts, they will make sure that the right wording is there, that it's not getting you into any trouble. There are a lot of contracts out there, but I always tell people, check with your attorney if you can.
Okay, so could I get it done on LegalZoom?
You probably can.
Because attorneys, they charge like $300 and something an hour.
But then you also got some attorneys that know somebody, and some of them may be able to drop their rate. They may be able to have pity on a small business owner and say, I can work with you in this rate. I know that's how I started out with my employment attorney. And, you know, he gave me his rate. I'm like, and who you think, what Rockefeller you think is going to pay this? But then we were able to establish a relationship. So there's many ways that you can do that. Anyone else? Thank you so much, Cheryl. Anyone else?
Looks like DeCarlo has something.
I would just say, if you're looking for those sub-agreements, do not overlook your insurance agent. We give them away for free. And we have lawyers, the carriers create those agreements and they are up to date and they're created by staff counsel. So they read exactly how the insurance company wants them to read. So reach out to your insurance agent or broker or whomever you're working with commercially to get those contracts as well.
Oh, thank you. That's a good resource, and we really appreciate that. But you notice he did say legal counsel had seen it. It wasn't Aunt Susie in the background writing you up a contract, but it's somebody that really knew what they were doing.
I do know that in the chat, Mr. Holmes has provided an employment and employment resource. This is a good opportunity if you all of those of you within the sound of my voice that want to provide your details in the chat, your contact information in the chat. One of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we've got a good community so that you can engage each other accordingly. Go right ahead, Dr. Thurston.
Oh, no. You know, you're the man of the hour. So does anyone else have any more questions? I know that we were limited to the 1 hour, so I did not want to talk that entire time, but give you an opportunity. Anyone? Okay. Mr. Harrison got some information in the chat about the insurance and some of the things that they're able.
It looks like Candace has her hand raised. Candace, go right ahead.
Yes, Dr. J, this is a very general question. And I was just kind of touching on the fact that you talked about making sure that we show appreciation for our employees, call out the good things that they're doing, the constructive criticism. I just wanted to know, could you maybe just lend a little bit of information? We probably could Google this, but why back in the 80s, I believe, when we were coming up, all of the human resource used to be called personnel. And
well, you know what?
In the 80s, it was converted to human resource. Can you talk on that just a little bit?
Well, the thing about it is because our role expanded. And it used to be that all we did was personnel in the sense dealing with people. Now we have a seat at the table where we deal with strategy, with business strategy. We have a seat at the table now where we are doing so many more things. As you saw the list that I put out there, you might even have a payroll department. You might even have somebody that handles medical, but all of those come under the umbrella. It's because the role expanded and they got some of the old fogies out of the way and they decided to rebrand it. And if you read any human resource book, they'll tell you a little bit about the history. Because how we came about was with worker laws, especially with child labor back in the industrial days when they had these little kids out there working and they were getting injured and some even faced death. So as they dealt just with personnel, that's why they were called that. But then it started to evolve.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have another question in the chat from Founder Holmes. Can you talk, Dr. Thurston, to us about tips on how to compete for talent when unemployment is low? Just talking about how there's still a surge in full employment, right? Yeah, even with the inflation and other challenges. Can you talk to the group a little bit about that?
Yeah, everyone, all organizations, that's one of the first things that we are hearing in this last year or so is that because people have options and they know that. I always tell people, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Go and try to find folk that are in unusual places. Sometimes there are Facebook groups. Like I know someone that's in the spa industry and they have a closed Facebook group and they put out their needs a lot of times there in that group. And they tell other people, but they also go some of the traditional routes with the job boards. You know, try to go to places that you would not normally look for folk because everybody's looking and the folk that are the top and the cream of the crop are rising to the top.
Do you have any recommendations on connections with like alumni boards or anything like that, Dr. Thurston?
Absolutely, absolutely. Word of mouth has always been good. And if I know Mr. Brown and Mr. Brown knows of a position, and oftentimes when you're talking to folk know about things before it hit the street. Okay. I know back in the day, which is about 50 years or so when I was looking for a job, and folk would tell me, talk to your network. A lot of times you sit beside people every day in church, every Sunday in church, and you don't say anything. They might know somebody, or they might know a company that is that's making some restructuring or whatever, and they have some folk that they're trying to help. So you never know. So you just always mix it up. And I think Nicole has a question.
She does indeed. Go right ahead, Nicole.
Hello. I'm a CPA, and you hear a lot about people being able to, from a tax perspective, deduct payments made to their children. So I'm in the process of hiring my college student to do some work around real estate that we own. Mm-hmm. So the question has to do with how do you deal with the Maryland laws about, he's considered an employee because obviously I'm directing him to do the work. Mm-hmm. Do I have to report him being a Maryland employee and do all that reporting?
Yes. Yes. And did you say he's over 18 or under 18?
Yes, he's 20.
Yeah, you would want to do that. As a matter of fact, if you put make sure that I get your information, I can send you some labor law information on that, on employing your children. Okay, but he'll be 21 in September, so, mm-hmm. He'll be a full adult, I guess, by then too. He's got a few more inches to grow to get to 21, and then he'll be a full adult. So we have to treat him as such. Okay, thank you. Should I put my information in the chat or? I tell you what, you can put it in the chat, and is Amber still on, or Candace, one of them? Can you grab that?
I'll make sure that they get it. If you put it in the chat,
okay.
Nicole, I'll make sure that you get it, Dr. Thurston.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about that. The next question in the chat talks a little bit about how folks are distinguishing themselves from an employment perspective and getting recognized, and some folks using videos as resumes instead of old school paper resumes. Is that really a new trend? And can you talk a little bit about that?
It is. It is a new trend because employers today are trying to think outside the box. And there's some people that they put everything in video. And it's according to what is the nature of your business, what works for you. As long as it is not violating any employment law. Remember when I said that you're recruiting, there are certain things that you have to keep records of to protect yourself. You have to keep that in mind when you're coming up with these out of the box thoughts. Okay, but that is the new trend, is that people are doing their recruiting through social media. And it used to be they would tell us not to check social media, but now that's one of the first things people go and do. So those of you that put anything on social media, know that somebody else sees it.
Okay. That was the follow-up I was going to ask you, is if there's any guidance that you have for folks, either themselves or who are speaking to folks, about how they navigate using social media responsibly from an employment and or business perspective.
Yeah, you have to, a lot of businesses, not all, but a lot of businesses have social media policies. And not only do they follow them, they use it in their recruiting. So know that what people are seeing, it is public. So if you don't want to be seen in a certain light, then make sure you don't put it out there. I know some people that they simply put up, and excuse my language, but they put up a wretched page. They can be just as wretched as they want because they're using a false name. They're using other things, but their particular Facebook or their Twitter or whatever that they have for themselves is very professional and polished. So know that people, and it used to be years ago, I had a contract where I had someone that wanted to go and check everybody out. Now, this is before the social media took off. What I would do is that I would not put any names. I put candidate 1, candidate 2, because what you're supposed to be concentrating on are the requirements as far as their technical skills, right? So why do you need to know that I live in a certain part of Baltimore? And then you're going to come back and tell me, oh, I don't think Dr. Thurston can get to work because she lives on this side of town. What does that have to do with doing the job? If I can't get to work, then you fire me, but you at least give me a chance because I have the credentials. So I used to help my folk out by simply taking their name and address off and put candidate 1, and it forced them to look at the actual credentials. Now, a lot of people kicked and screamed. Well, I want to know, why do you need to know? That was because they were going on Facebook and going to all these other platforms and checking folk out. So I helped them out that way. You can't check out who you don't know.
It's a great point. Everybody just needs to be aware, with respect to social media. You got to be careful. You got to be smart, especially with your business and how your business is represented with respect to social media. So great points. We've got a question from DeCarlo who asks, can you briefly discuss employee benefits liability and its importance?
Well, you know what, I deal with brokers, but I don't necessarily do benefits myself. I think it is 2 employees, 2 full-time employees that you have to have. And then a broker will come in, and Will, you met Maria. Someone like Maria will come in and they can broker that. So I don't really do a lot of that information, but I can refer you to someone who does.
Excellent, excellent. Dorothy asks, as an organization, how do you stay up to date with the labor laws? Do you have to constantly reach out to the Labor Department or websites or updates? Do they come to businesses? Sort of, how does that work?
That's when you hire somebody like me. No, what we have is that we have an HR, we have HR platforms, we have attorneys, we get alerts. As a matter of fact, one of the packets that we've put together is that when you start with us, when you get an alert, it will come directly from the platform where we have 70 to 100 specialists that are what we call pros, and that's what they're getting paid for, to keep up with the changes. And then they will send an alert right to your inbox. Because it is hard to do. It is hard to do.
I think we've got another question here, and this, Mr. Gann's question is a good one, because I was just looking at a few articles today. We were talking about people complaining about lunchflation, having to go back into the office, and now you got to pay for lunch and driving and all of that stuff. The question is, have you noticed any trends employers are adopting in this virtual work world we all live in to attract and retain new talent?
Most of them are being more flexible with their schedules. And they found out COVID had us learn that you don't have to be in the office to be productive. Okay. Now, you may, as an employer, have to put some things in place to assure you that people are doing their work, make sure that deadlines are not just dropping. But folk are doing work from everywhere. And I read an article today, like Elon is requesting all his people come back into the office because he stayed at the plant when they were building his Tesla. And oh, well, that's you. People have found out there's more to living than working. And because of that, their lifestyles have changed. One of the problems, especially with the federal government that they're running into, is that if I lived in DC and you paid me a locale pay because cost of living is higher here, but during COVID, I went and stayed with grandma in Montana, but I still got the same check. So they are still trying to maneuver and see how they're going to work with that. Because if I continue to let you work, am I going to continue to pay you at that higher rate? Or am I going to give you the locale that's substantially lower in Montana? So we're seeing folk being more flexible and saying, you know what, as long as the work can get done, we're okay with this. So there are some different trends. And then I see more people are going to consulting because it fits their lifestyle. Employers are now looking at people's lifestyle because they realize, because they experienced it in themselves, that they could be more productive at home, walking from their kitchen with a cup of coffee and starting at 9 o'clock than leaving their house at 7 so that they can be in that office at 9 and not get anything done. People may even be starting work earlier because they don't have to do that commute. And their quality of life has gone up. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did that answer your question? I kind of rambled there a minute.
That was a phenomenal answer. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All
Excellent. I know
right.
we're coming around the mountain to the top of the hour. Any additional questions for Dr. Thurston, who, might I add, has done a fantastic job. I think we've got a wealth of information. That's right. You can clap it up. We've done a wealth of job, great information on a wide breadth of topics.
I have,
so glad we're recording this. Go right ahead.
I do have one. I'm sorry. I don't type that fast, so I couldn't type it in.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Dr. Thurston, can you just kind of give your philosophy on when it comes to hiring, how much, and if there is a magic number, how much should we be relying on as employers, personality testing, and I mean, there's a bunch of different kinds of entry level testing and exam that we're doing now versus the old days where we hired, we did an interview and we, got a gut feeling and we hired a person. Now, right, for example, my office does, I believe, four tests and then a post-hire test as well, personality and otherwise, personality and skills.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. It depends on the type of individual that you're looking for, and how well does that personality, is it, spot on or what? I am a certified DISC facilitator and trainer. So I always kind of go towards this because I found it to be really real. It is really real, but there's some people that use Myers-Briggs there. And there are some organizations that, for like example, Live, they have 3,200 employees. All of them had to take a personality test because that's part of what their recruitment. So, but it's according to what they're going to be doing. Because I have some people that I've worked with, an individual where they were, very shy. They were very, very good technically, but they were not very good people, individuals. So if I could stick them in a room somewhere, they perform, but they kind of faltered when they got in front of people. So when you just need to find out what the mix is, but did that personality that was in that corner, did they necessarily need a personality test? I could tell that just from an interview. So it depends. I'm not against it or for it. It just depends on what you're going to be using it for. But don't rely totally on it. Let that just be a piece of it or a part of it, but not all of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. And I thank you all so much for showing up. I thought it was just going to be me and Mr. Brown and Mr. Holmes. I said, oh, I get this whole hour just for them. So I am thankful that you all showed up tonight. Thank you so, so very much.
I too am thankful. Dr. Thurston, again, for your presentation. As I said, I think it was phenomenal. I also want to thank our group, the cohort of folks on the call today. Great questions, insightful questions. Tell me this by a show of hands or thumbs or emojis or whatever. Was this helpful to you all? Did you all get something out of this? Getting a couple thumbs up, hands up. Okay, great, good, excellent. You got some color coordinated hands out there. Great, good job. So thank you. We're trying to really tailor this to the community. As you all know, the mission of the Baltimore Economic Leadership League is really to help to empower small minority, women-owned rural businesses, really to make that connection from not only a capital perspective, but also a community and coaching perspective. And really, we want to make sure that we're covering all those bases. So we appreciate all of your time and engagement. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't post in the chat, join bell, right? Please make sure that I invite you, if you are not a member, please do join bell. If you can, please share out that site, really easy to remember, with folks so that we can continue our mission and keep things going, okay? Once again, thanks to Dr. Janetta Thurston. Mr. Holmes, do you have anything in closing as our founder should?
Thank you. God bless. Good night.
All right.
Right.
You can't get better than that. So with that, I will say on behalf of JDA Consulting, the Baltimore Economic Leadership League, Mr. William Holmes, I am Renard Brown, Executive Director. Please don't hesitate to reach out and we will see you on our site very shortly. Everybody have a great evening. Bye-bye.
All right, on time. Love it.